Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Nemleria Yugioh deck profile for March 2024. This is a very interesting Banish Pendulum fairy tale mechanic that focuses on the pendulum monster Dreaming Nemleria, but I wouldn't really call this a pendulum deck. It's more of a deck that focuses on setting up cards in your Banish zone, having no cards in your extra deck, and then making use of the special summon power of Dreaming Nemleria to summon out the many different dream beasts that she has while, experiencing Dreamland, if you want to call it that, for the setup. But yeah, very interesting deck for sure with all of these different monsters you can summon out. So let's go ahead and get started with the update to the deck profile, because like I said, there's been some new support. I just never got around to actually updating the deck with that new support all the way up to Age of Overlord. So let's go ahead and get started. So starting off with the main deck monsters, our main go-to key monster is Dreaming Nemleria. Sadly, I only could find the 2 copies. I don't know where my 3rd copy got to, but I have 1 copy of Nemleria Dream Defender or Railer as a placeholder for a 3rd copy of the Pendulum monster for the Pendulum Scale card effect. Once per turn during your main phase, you can place 1 Nemleria continuous spell from your deck or graveyard face up on your field. If you do add this card to your extra deck face up, you cannot special summon Dreaming Nemleria the turn you activate this effect. So this sets up the main play that then you go for. It cannot be normal summon or set. It must be special summon from face up in your extra deck by having no cards in your extra deck except for Dreaming Nemleria. You can only special summon this card once per turn. If it's special summon for every 3 of your face down banish cards, you can banish up to 1 card to your opponent's field and or graveyard face down, then shuffle 1 of your face down banish cards into your deck for each of you card you banish by this effect. So this can recycle some of the resources for you, but then the main play also comes down to you being able to summon out your bigger Nemleria Dreaming monsters onto the field to utilize and also help to set up your Dreaming Nemleria on the field, which then helps to then just take out your opponent's own cards. For the actual Dream monsters, we're running 3 copies of Dreaming Reality of Nemleria Realized. It gains 100 attack for each face-down card in your extra deck. You're going to use each of the following effects of Dreaming Nemleria of Reality Realized once per turn. If this card's in your hand, you can target 1 monster you control, place it on the bottom of the deck. If you do special summon this card, if special summon, you can activate 1 of these effects. You can add 1 Dreaming Nemleria from your deck to your face-up extra deck, or change 1 other face-up monster on the field to face-down defense position. So either you can take away a resource from your opponent using this card's monster effect, or set up the main playstyle that we go for in the deck, which is to empty out your extra deck to then be able to set up Dreaming Nemleria and summon her back onto the field. We also run 3 copies of Nemleria Dream Devourer Reveal. With this card, if this card's in your hand or graveyard, you can banish 3 cards from your extra deck face down, except for Dreaming Nemleria. You can special summon this card. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn you activate this effect, except for Pendulum monsters. You can send 1 other level 10 beast monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard to set 1 Nemleria trap directly from your deck. You can only use each effect of Devour, Reveal once per turn. So you either have the setup for your face up spells, thanks to Dreaming Nemleria, or the traps, which we do run a wide variety for the spells and the traps in the deck. So having more setup for our many different Nemleria traps as well is why this is another 3 of, just so we have that setup for those cards onto the field. For some of the lower numbers for the Nemleria monsters, 2 copies of Nemleria Dream Defender or Railer. If you have a face-up Pendulum monster in your extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Defender or Railer once per turn this way. If you have Dreaming Nemleria face-up in your extra deck, quick effect, you can banish 1 face-down card from your extra deck face-down, and this card gains 500 attack for each monster your opponent currently controls. So more of an attack point boost, but also needing that setup to be able to summon this card out onto the field to begin with. And the same sort of play setup with our Nemleria Dream Defender Couette. If you have a face-up Pendulum monster in your extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. Special summon this card only once per turn this way. And when your opponent activates a card effect that targets a Nemleria card you control, well, you have Dreaming Nemleria face-up in your extra deck, you can banish 1 face-down card from your extra deck to negate that activation. So both of these cards also help just to speed along the banishment of your extra deck cards to then also counter against some cards with your opponent, whether it be the effect negation of Couette or the attack boost of a Whaler. For more banish support, we also run the 3 copies of Eater of Million. Just being able to summon this card out by banishing 5 more cards from your hand, field, and our extra deck can just help to speed along the banishment from our extra deck. So it's a definite 3 of, just for the pace in which you can get those cards banished to then utilize the main play of your deck to begin with, also powering this card up, and then also being so if it battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that monster face down, taking away other resources away from your opponents. And also, I run the 1 copy of Gren Maju. If you wanted to run a second copy, you can maybe try dropping down Eater of Millions to a copy of 2 in the deck for a second copy of this, just because with all the cards banished so quickly with this deck, Gren Maju can easily become a major powerhouse to then just swing into your opponent with no restrictions at all. And also the 3 copies of Dimension Shifter as the first hand trap in the deck. It really doesn't disrupt any of your plays in the deck. If anything, it'll, stop your opponent's plays for a turn, giving you setup as well for more banish cards, along with cards that your opponent has, and then disrupt any graveyard plays they may try to go for, with Ash Blossom being the last monster hand trap in the deck, because even if you have, D-Shifter effect active, all you have to do is discard Ash Blossom, and it can still activate its effect. You don't have to send it to the graveyard like some of our other hand traps. Discarding it can even mean it could be banished for you to stop your opponent's search or graveyard setup, which if they're under D-Shifter, they're not going to be doing any graveyard setup to begin with. Moving on now to the spells. Running 3 copies of Dream Tower of Princess Nemleria. You can banish 2 face-down cards from your extra deck face down to add 2 level 10 beast monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck this turn. You activate this effect, except for Pendulum monsters. You can only use this effect of Dream Tower once per turn. If a Nemleria monster you control be destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, while you have Dreaming Nemleria face up in your extra deck, you can banish 1 face-down card from your extra deck face down instead. So it searches out the beast monsters, so it won't be able to search out Realize, but you can search out cards like Reveal and the lower numbers Aureller and Couette, thanks to this continuous spell, giving you that search for some of the lower numbers that we run in the deck to begin with as well. Also, 3 copies of Sweet Dreams Nemleria. You add 1 Nemleria monster from your deck to your hand. Then if you have Dreaming Nemleria face up in your extra deck, your opponent can activate card artifacts this turn. When a Nemleria monster is normal or special summon, you can place this card from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck to target a Dream Nemleria you control and add it to the extra deck face up. This allows you to not only search out some specific monsters, but then to also reset your own Pendulum monster back in the extra deck after you set it up on the field again. So if your extra deck's pretty empty, giving you another add back special summon the following turn if your opponent were to try and get rid of any of your resources again. And then also 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance, just for the last of the spells. It's just another great draw power. You really don't want to use the extra deck for much in this deck, so this card just takes away more of those resources. You always want to go for the Banish 6, because then that's a huge chunk of your extra deck taken care of while giving you more draw power as well in the form of this card. For our traps from Age of Overlord, our newest one is Nemleria Repeter. If you control another Nemleria card, you can banish the following number of cards from your extra deck face down, except for Dreaming Nemleria, and activate one of the appropriate effects. If it's 1, you add 1 Nemleria card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's 2, any damage you take this turn is halved. And 3, send 1 level 10 beast monster you control to the graveyard to negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. The 3 banish is a definite powerhouse, and this is a 3 of just so you always have this continuous trap, which can also be set up thanks to some of our other monsters like Reveal quite easily on the field. And also with this card being able to be set up that way, you just have more protection in the form of a continuous trap on the field for any of your opponents trying to inflict damage against you. And then also the 2 copies of Nemleria Louvre. You special summon 1 Nemleria monster or level 10 beast monster from your hand or deck in defense position, but return to the hand during the end phase. You can banish this card from your graveyard to target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. It loses 100 attack and defense for each card currently face down or banished until the end of this turn. So more of a protection and defense setup as well, along with the other Nemleria trap we run, but more of a way just to grab some of those other Nemleria monsters that are level 10 from our hand or extra deck back onto the field for a protection resource. And then lastly, the 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just as the last hand trap of choice. Once again, no restriction with this card when it comes to the banish setup that you can do. So just like to run it as another plan in case our opponent does go first against us, for us to be able to activate it from our hand against them. And that is it for the main deck. Moving on now to the extra deck. For the extra deck, as I said, this is an extra deck that'll be, utilized mostly just for the banish option. So when it comes to the actual monsters, it's quite irrelevant, but we still want to have usable cards. So 2 copies of Rail Cannon Super Dora, 2 copies of Gustav Max for some generic rank 10s for destruction and burn damage. The 1 copy of Galaxy Destroyer, always one of the first banished targets to go for, along with Sky Palace Congradi. And also the 1 copy of number 35, 1 copy of number 84, and number 77 too, if we have to overlay all 3 to at least give us a powerhouse number monster on the field, with also the 1 copy of Typhoon and the 1 Zeus for overlaying on the other Xyz monsters, and the 1 copy of Link Karibo, the 1 SP Little Knight, 1 Hita the Fire Charmer Ablaze, and the 1 Nightmare Unicorn for the rest of the extra deck monsters, which to have just a small Link lineup, but still, as I said, most of the time they're just going to be all banished for the sake of the playstyle of the deck to begin with. And as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I said, the setup of Dreaming Nemleria in your extra deck is your main go-to play. So if you have your extra deck and you just set this card face up, banishing cards from your extra deck is your main go-to play. It can't be, set up there the turn it was placed by its own effect, but still, if you could set it up by other means, then you have a way to summon it back onto the field, banishing cards of your opponent. So the setup also comes down to if you want to go for some of the special summons of your other Nemleria monsters onto the field by using their own banish effects for slowly taking out their own resources onto the field. Then if you have the means to banish more of the monsters, that's where Eater of Millions comes in handy, or even some of your defensive Nemleria cards like Repeter to at least banish cards to protect you. You have a 6 of Bower damage banish with your Extravagance, up to 6 cards there. Then if you go for, let's say, Eater of Millions to banish the rest, that'll summon out your other monster, giving you the banish as well, so 6 additional cards off of the Eater of Millions, and or the Pot of Extravagance, giving you draw into potentially what you might need as well. You can then just banish the rest off of Eater of Millions, summoning out this card. Then you have your whole extra deck banish, allowing you to summon out your Dreaming Nemleria to the extra monster zone, having that banish, and then a heavy hit for all of the Nemleria monsters you may have been able to summon out onto the field to begin with. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, it's a very interesting deck that's not really a pendulum deck, but more of a fantasy dream world deck that focuses on obliterating your extra deck for you to be able to summon out your many different Nemleria monsters. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.